Many times in the Black community have we heard, I hate math. I don't rock with math. Math is not my favorite subject. Well, guess what? My next guest, author and veteran math teacher, Mr. Akil Parker, is here to dispel all of that negative talk that we have about math. Please stay tuned for this next upcoming episode of Real Reading Talk. You do not want to miss it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why there are high levels of illiteracy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together. Yes, yes. Well, guess what, y'all? I've done it again, y'all. I've been on the hunt. I told y'all, I said season 3, because this is season 3, all right? This is episode 28. And I said I was going to dedicate this season to, as much as possible, bringing on awesome, dope Black authors. Well, this brother here, this brother right here, who is coming on the show, his name is Brother Akil Parker. He is a veteran high school math teacher, 19 years, y'all. Adjunct professor at Cheyney University, founder of All This Math, author of How to Use All This Math, Volume 1, and awesome, dope father of 3. So I want you all to give it up for our dear brother, Mr. Akil Parker. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. I love that introduction.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well, I love saying it because all this stuff, I'm just like, just smiling. I'm like, man, I'm like, this is just so awesome. And I'm smiling because you're a Black man. I mean, just keeping it 100, a Black man who is, dedicated to educating our babies. When it comes to math, though, when it comes to math, that is just super dope. So we're about to just get right on into it. I want you to tell us your background, like where you from. You can, give your age if you want, all that good stuff, and your foundation.
Yeah, so I'm 43. I'll be 44 next month. My birthday is I always, use a reference of Malcolm X's birthday. My birthday is 2 days before Malcolm X's birthday. So, that's always been important to me once I learned about that brother. I was born in New York, but I spent my formative years in Baltimore. My family migrated to Baltimore when I was pretty young. I was like 7, and then I, grew up there. And then I came to Philly after college. So I got a degree. My undergraduate degree was earned from Morgan State University in Baltimore. And then I relocated, to Philly, and I've been in Philly ever since. But nowadays, I spend a lot of time, well, even more time, going back and forth between Baltimore and Philadelphia because out of my 3 children, 2 of them actually live in Baltimore. My oldest is a student at Morgan State. Also, he's a freshman at Morgan State, so he's down there. And then my youngest son, Kwame, he's down there primarily living with his mother. So I got to be down there so I can be like, as present as I possibly can, in his life. And then my daughter, Asada, who you'll see in a lot of my YouTube video content, she's in Philadelphia. So she spends, a lot of time, and, I'm with her a lot, when I'm in Philly. And, I started out, like I said, I started out teaching math back in 2005. I kind of came into teaching by accident. I never intended to become a teacher. I wasn't an education major. I was a finance major. I was out in college trying to chase money. I wanted money, and had a very like individualistic path. I wasn't really as concerned about community, at that age. When I was in my late teens and early 20s, and I didn't end up going like to Wall Street like I wanted to work. So I ended up getting a job in Delaware working with the FDIC as a bank examiner, and that wasn't a good fit. I wasn't really being trained, so I didn't really know what I was doing, and I ended up leaving there after a year. And then, as I said, I became a teacher by accident because I got connected with this agency that was hiring substitute teachers as well as tutors. And I wanted to do tutoring, but there wasn't a lot of tutoring opportunities at that time. But they always needed substitute teachers because teachers are always calling out, life happens. So I had the opportunity to do a long-term sub position in Kensington at a school, Mariana Brissetti, that is in the current location of Sankofa Freedom Academy charter, where they're located at now. That used to be Mariana Brissetti near Kensington and Kensington and Lehigh. So I did a long-term sub teaching 10th grade geometry, like 4 sections. And, I just decided that, if I took it seriously, I could probably become a good teacher one day. And that was back in 2005. That was in the spring of '05. And I just, been progressing, through my career, taking advantage of different opportunities, teaching upward bound programs, teaching different Saturday programs, teaching after school programs, teaching summer programs, all over the city and, different parts of Philly, and just really like honing my craft and, just developing my skill set and really learning from my students. Like I really learned how to teach from, teaching different students that had different learning styles and that understood things in different ways, or they understood things differently from the way I understood them. So that was very beneficial and helpful to me because I was able to see things through a different lens. And it really has just helped me with my practice. That's why I like, when I make my YouTube content, I'm trying to push that to the community. I pretty much know where most people are gonna be confused. So I'm able to like incorporate that into my videos. So, it's like I already know what's going to confuse you, because I got so much experience. I've been doing this for so long and I've been teaching these topics for so long. I know what's going to like get people caught up. So I know to like incorporate that into my lesson. Whereas, and I think that just comes with experience. It's not, young teachers, they might know a lot of math. They might have been strong math students themselves, but if you never sat in front of a classroom or you never worked with somebody that didn't have strong math skills, and a lot of different types of people that lacked strong math skills, you won't know what somebody won't know, unless you've had the experience. So I've had a lot of those experiences. So I'm able to, kind of just incorporate, those points, those critical points to let people know, like when you get to this part of the problem, make sure you look out for this, so hopefully those words will be in their head, when they're doing problems, and they always remember. So they never get the chance to even make the mistake. They won't need to, because I've already said it like in the YouTube video content. So yeah, so I'm just, really just trying to play my part, or what I see as my part. I just want to remove math as a barrier to our success, because math is really a gatekeeper. Math holds a lot of people back. Math is, I believe, the reason for a lot of our problems, um, and a lot of our, inability to advance through life as individually and also as a community. A lot of people, if they go to college and they're not sure about what they want to major in, a lot of people pick majors based on the major that requires the fewest math courses, which is unfortunate because a lot of those people would be excellent engineers or computer scientists or other STEM professionals or doctors or registered nurses or, architects or whatnot. But they realize like, oh, I got to take all these math classes. Like, no, I can't do it. Right. So they self disqualify out of those fields and off of that path. So I really want to stop that. I want us to really be able to just, take advantage of any opportunities. And if you want to go into liberal arts, that's cool. But I want you to go into liberal arts because you really want to. I don't want you to go into liberal arts because that's all you feel that's left for you. Like I want you to have the opportunity to say, look, I'm qualified to take all the math coursework and become a computer engineer, but I might decide proactively and conscientiously that I want to be a social worker, or I want to major in philosophy because that's what I want to study and that's my interest and that's what I want to do, right? Not and I don't want, but so many people do oftentimes, respectfully, they go into those majors because they feel that's all that's left for them, because they lack the math skills or they lack the mathematical ability or math proficiency. So I want to end that. I just want people to have options, so they can access, so it'll be just that, an option, and not just what they feel is just left over on the table for them, you know. So yeah, like now, and we can leverage, I keep mentioning the YouTube channel, we can leverage the technology, and bring it to the people. And I started the channel because my company, all this math, we started out as a math tutoring company, right? But then I realized a couple of things. One is that I can't tutor everybody because I'm trying to teach math to the whole Black community, right? Just first and foremost, that's what I'm trying to do. That's my aim, right? I want everybody, all our people to learn math, right? But I realized I'm only one person. I can't tutor everybody. And even when I recruited my son, when he was a high school freshman, now he's a college freshman. But when he was a high school freshman, I recruited him to also tutor because that was a way for him to make some money and also for him to practice his math skills on a regular basis and also to make positive contributions to the community all at the same time. Just the two of us, we can't tutor everybody. So I said, well, what if I just, leverage this, this YouTube space and the social media space and just create content that's just going to be available to the people, at their disposal when they need it. And then, they can just, pause and rewind and use the lessons, to their benefit. Um, so that's why we started it. And also some people don't have the resources. They don't have the financial resources to be able to afford, private tutoring, which is a real thing. I say, so some people, but I don't want that to be a barrier. I don't want that to be a hindrance. I think everybody should have, I think about something that, the late Fred Hampton said, in one of his speeches. He said, he believed, and the members of the Black Panther Party believe that children should eat because they're hungry. Children shouldn't be able to eat because they have money to buy food. They should eat because they're hungry. Because there's enough food in the world. I mean, we live in a society under capitalism where people throw food away like on a daily basis just to maintain, supply and the supply and demand, just to maintain the prices, so they waste food purposefully. So, what I'm saying? So that's what we're dealing with. So I just think people should be able to learn math, you know, just because they need to. Like people need to learn math. And I also think that we got to understand what math really is. I think that's part of the pushback that comes along with people, not feeling comfortable or not wanting to study math is because they don't really know what it is. It's really a system of problem solving. And it's much deeper than just the equation that you see on the board or in the textbook or in the worksheet. It's really about training your brain to be able to identify a problem, no matter who the problem is with or what the problem is, and being able to map out like a strategy and an approach to solve the problem in a systematic and step-by-step way. That's really what math is and what math trains you to do. And all the different types of math topics that we cover are really just different ways, it's providing like a framework, I would say, for us to be able to approach problems in a more systematic way. So, I mean, it could be, a problem with your significant other that you have, or a problem with a supervisor at your job, or if you are a supervisor, a problem with one of your employees, a problem with a sibling, a problem with a friend, a problem with somebody in traffic, or something dangerous and, inconsiderate. We got to be able to think critically as to how do we handle this problem, and this is what math trains us in doing. It trains us in problem solving. So that's why I want our people to understand it. I want our people to understand the math. And also, we also have to understand that problem solving is a problem for the people that benefit from us having the problems we have. I'm gonna try something to say it again.
Come on.
Because when every problem that I have, there's somebody benefiting from that problem. Somebody somewhere, some person or some entity is benefiting from that problem. So once I solve that problem, I solve my personal problem, I have created a problem for that person or that entity that was benefiting from it. So it makes sense to me that, people have to be programmed to think that math is too difficult, math is too hard, they're not smart enough to get it, or they need to be born with a math gene so that they can, master math, or math is irrelevant. They start saying things like that because that way, those that benefit from our collective problems as well as our individual problems, they will be safe and they'll be able to continue to profit from our problems. Because what we end up doing is running away from the math, and the math is in my opinion the single greatest subject to help train us in problem solving. So as long as I can condition you to basically run away from math, and by running away from math, you're running away from problem solving and problem solving ability. So as long as you can't solve your problems, as long as I'm benefiting from your problem, I'm straight. I'm good. I'm always going to be good because you're never going to solve your problem, right? And so that's like the deeper, to me, that's the deeper like political relevance of mathematics and mathematics education. And that's why it's like so many children, in Black communities, all in Philly, Baltimore, DC, wherever you go, Chicago, LA, all over the country. children say the same thing. Oh, it's too hard. I don't get it. Or I hate fractions or this and that, or this is stupid or this is pointless. And even the parents are very frustrated about the so-called new math, which I understand because it's not the way that we were taught, 30 years ago or 40 years ago. There's some different methods that are being offered, but you know, I look at it like we don't embrace the new methods. Like we see that as a problem. Whereas, like, if we were talking about multiple streams of income, we would want multiple streams of income. So I think our children should have multiple streams of problem solving to benefit them, right? So, but we wanted to just, we feel more comfortable with just having one way of doing things, which is cool. And I also understand that parents don't know the new ways or the different ways, which is why I want to equip parents with new methods for solving problems. So I don't want to just be the person that just kind of beat up on Black parents and just, tell them like, you got to do better, or you gotta tighten up and gotta learn the new math so you can help your children with their homework. I want to give you resources. I want to give you the YouTube channel where I got videos where I work it out step by step, and I'm showing you how to do the new math homework problems. Or I got my book. My book goes into some of that. And also the workshops. I also do new math parent workshops, right? Where I'm like, meeting with parents either in person or virtually, and we just going over math problems, and that's really a way to help parents feel more comfortable with the content. But the deeper issue is helping parents to get more confident, because a lot of it is just a lack of confidence. That's really the key, because when you lack confidence, you won't even try to figure it out. You'll just be like, nah, I'm cool. I don't even want to look at it, because you lack the confidence. But if I can instill some confidence in you and show you how to get a couple right answers, then you'll feel like, okay, I could get it. Like even me, like I've been teaching for almost 20 years. Like I'm a college professor, I done taught on a high school level. I taught all ages of students. I've taught adult learners. And I continue to do that work. I forget things sometimes, or somebody might present me with a type of problem that I don't know how to do. But the difference is I have the confidence to believe that I can figure it out, and I can use some resources that are online or in a book somewhere, or I can reach out to one of my homeboys that might teach math, or homegirl that might teach math, and be like, how you do this, like. But I have that level of confidence where I'm willing to try to find out, and I'm confident that I will be able to find out. You know, so yeah, I know that was like a long and lengthy explanation of my background, but it's all relevant. It's all relevant to the work I do.
Oh no, everything. You listen, you came out the gate dropping gems, brother Akil, and I know my listeners are just like loving it because I mean, literally, I felt like I was like, dang man, he like examined my life. Like when you start talking about, you picking a major that has like the least amount of math, I'm all like, hey, was he there? Like literally,
It's just a
I'm
lot
like
of people do
bragging on
that.
that. I'll be like, I'm like, yeah, all I had to do was say college algebra, and that's
Yeah.
literally because I was a communications major. I got my degree in communications from Kent State. And I mean, even though, that is something along the realms that I wanted to do, but literally that was a part of the decision making. I was like, okay, I ain't trying to do nothing with, all this math. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to have the least amount of math as possible. And so what I want to ask you, because you literally, I mean, it's like you were just answering, like you didn't answer like a whole bunch of my questions. You know what I'm saying? They ain't right, but that's all right. That's okay because we're gonna work our way back. Because we need to know this foundation. When I'm talking about in terms of your background, like, so tell us, how did you grow up? Did you grow up in a house where it was like all this math? Like, like your parents were just like, listen, they were like math geniuses. So that's where you get it from. Tell us that upbringing.
So I would say the short answer is no.
Okay.
My mother probably had a stronger math background than my father has. Um, for a year, I had to drop out of school when I was in kindergarten. I was a kindergarten dropout.
Okay.
We had some transportation issues, so
Okay.
it was a private school I was attending, and I wasn't able to get there. We didn't have reliable transportation. And we had limited resources. So, what I'm saying? So I ended up staying home, and my mom homeschooled me basically.
Mm,
basically out of necessity. It wasn't even like a structured plan. I don't think it just was, our black people, we just do what we gotta do.
we got to do.
So it was like, we're gonna homeschool you, for the rest of this school year.
Mm,
And so I think my mother was instrumental in providing a solid foundation for me in mathematics. And then I went back to school the following year and ended up skipping a grade actually because I was ahead. I was ahead of the class. So because I had learned so much while I was homeschooling. Um, but I kind of my father was an educator, so there was that for me and my siblings. I think there was that kind of expectation that we would do well, and we valued education and we wanted to do well, and we strive to do well for the most part. Most of us, throughout our elementary and middle and high school experience. And for me, I just, I liked getting good grades. I like the attention, I like the positive reinforcement, which is important to say because like a lot of people they'll ask me questions about like on like different interviews and different conversations like this. They make the assumption that I've always loved math and I really didn't. I didn't dislike it, but I kind of was like indifferent to math. It wasn't really about the math, but it was about the grades that I could get and about get I had to get right answers to get good grades, and I like getting good grades. I like that report card with all them 90s. I just like that. I used to fiend for that. I just couldn't wait till report cards came. I needed to see all them 90s so I could flex. I just wanted to flex on people. I just needed to see them
like, man, you
90s.
see this? You see this report
Yeah.
card?
I remember one time I got a 100 in a class. I think it was like mechanical drawing. It was an elective I took in middle school, but just to see like a 100 printed on a report card because I didn't think that was possible.
Yeah.
But I was like, I did my thing, and I was like, yeah, see, I just wanted to flex. But with math, again, there was a lot of you would get a lot of respect, for being like the person that was like really good at math. Like, at least in the communities that I lived, I know in some communities it's not like that, but communities I lived in, you would get respect, for being a strong student. And I enjoyed that. But I think with math, I didn't love it because I still had some rough patches in terms of my K through 12 math education. And also, I lacked a conceptual understanding of math. I had a very strong algorithmic and procedural understanding of math. So I was always really good at memorizing formulas and memorizing steps and knowing how to replace. If you give me a formula, I will memorize how to replace the letters with the correct numbers and then just do the calculation. But if you ask me why it worked, I couldn't tell you. Like I couldn't tell you why long division works, or what's really happening, or why the multiplication algorithm works, or when you're doing like in terms of other elementary math, like when we are adding numbers vertically, and we carry the one, like what does that one really mean? Like I didn't know it really was a 10. Or when we borrow, what was actually happening? I couldn't tell nobody a story about that would make sense, like an intelligible story. I couldn't do that. So I lacked conceptual understanding. Years later, maybe like in the past 5 or 6 years, I developed a love for math because I had to teach math methods at Cheney. So I'm teaching education majors, how to teach math. So then I had to learn, how to teach the fundamentals of math because my background is in high school math. So I'm like, I'm starting out with algebra 1. I'm doing a lot of geometry, a lot of stats, pre-cal, calculus. I'm not really focused on like how to multiply fractions. I just know how to do it. And I just take for granted that through my career as a high school teacher, when students come to my class, they already know how to multiply fractions. A lot of them didn't, though. A lot of them didn't know how to add fractions because they didn't know how to find common denominators. But even with me, like I know how to do that, but I couldn't really explain to you like why. Like why do you need to find a common denominator? Like I couldn't tell you. Like couldn't once upon a time I couldn't tell you. Now I can, and I love having those conversations.
Mm,
Because that's how it makes sense. Like the math had to make sense. Well, at least before it didn't have to make sense, but I'm glad it makes more sense now because I understand the concept behind it.
mhm,
And that's what I want people to understand. I want people to understand the concept because then once you understand the concept, I believe that you can develop a love for it. And then once you develop a love for it, then you'll see it as a tool to use like in everyday life. any chance you get, to your benefit, and it's something to run toward as opposed to something to run away from, where a lot of people run away from the math, right? But I want people to like run toward the math because the
Mm.
math can help us. And it's ours anyway. I think there's a lot of false propaganda and it's very indirect at times, and it makes us feel as Black people that math is not for us. I think about Lisa Delpit's book, "Multiplication is for White People." The title of it is, and she talks about why she entitled it that because a young Black boy. That was a quote from a young Black boy that she was observing, and they were having a conversation, and a young Black boy was like, we know how to add and subtract, but multiplication and division, that's for white people. That's harder. So we don't know how to do all that stuff. But that's that programming. That subtle and sometimes very blatant and blunt programming that a lot of like Black children have, and then Black children with that programming, they grow up and become adults that still have that programming, and then when they have their own children, they tend to transfer that on to their children. This like pessimism and this like kind of imposter syndrome around mathematical ability. So, we got to like confront some of these things. Well, first recognize that they're real and they're very tangible and exist, and we got to like kind of just say no and say, well, why do I think that? Why do I feel that way? It's almost like and similar to that, like why a lot of people think that they're bad at math. One day I just sat back and just like posed that question, like who told you, you were bad at math? It's almost like I think about that. It's relevant to me because it reminds me of like one of Malcolm X's speeches when he says there's like an excerpt or a line where he says, and he says, and look at you, who taught you to hate yourself? Why do you hate yourself? Like, why do you like conduct yourself in this way? And so I think about people that say that they're bad at math. Like, who told you was bad at math? And if we really have that real conversation and unpack that, I think we will find some things out. Like, because I often encounter students that think they're bad at math, and then they can't really quantify how bad they are. It's just a feeling they have. I just feel like I'm just not that good, so they can't quantify it. And then I'm looking at them work, and I'm like you really not that bad. You're not that bad. Like you have a level of understanding that is that is good. You're at a good point at a good stage. I mean, you might lack some understanding, but that's okay. We can work through that. But there are two things I do want to say about why I think some people think they're bad at math. A lot of adults out here.
Okay.
One is because they may have had a teacher that didn't give partial credit on quizzes or tests.
Okay.
And I see value in that. I can understand like not giving partial credit, also giving partial credit. I see value in both. But if you had a teacher that didn't give partial credit, I always give this example. Like, let's say it was a 5-question quiz. So each question is worth 20 points. Let's say you get number 1 and number 2 correct. So you get your full credit, you get 40 points for those. But on numbers 3, 4, and 5, you make small errors. Like number 3, you might have left out a negative sign. Teacher bangs you for 20 points. Number 4, you might have, been working too fast, and had a mental lapse, and you might have did 8 divided by 2 instead of 8 minus 2 because you might have been working too fast. Get the wrong answer. Teacher bangs you 20 more points.
Mm.
Number 5, then you might mix up the steps, and you end up getting the wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
You get banged for another 20 points. So you lost 60 points. So you end up with a 40 and you fail. But let's say the teacher doesn't have an opportunity because of their demands and their responsibilities. They don't have an opportunity to really sit down with you and do an analysis and let what your level of understanding really is. You just thinking about that 40. Like, I got a 40, I failed. I'm not good at math. So that equates to you to I'm not good at math.
Mm.
But in fact, that 40 is not a fair representation or a fair measurement of your actual ability and level of understanding, because you did understand what to do in numbers 3 and number 4. You just made careless errors. So you should have had an 80. And even number 5, you just mixed up 2 steps. So that's why you got that wrong. So you could have had 100. That 40 is not really a fair representation. But I think what people do is they have those experiences early on, and then it compounds. And then they just feel like they become pessimistic. And then they feel like, well, I might as well not even try. Why study? I just got a 40. I'm probably gonna get another 40 anyway. You know? So I think that happens to a lot of people. People carry that weight, throughout their life. And the other major issue I think people have is, it's like we think classrooms are equitable. As a child, you go into a classroom thinking that it's a level playing field, and you thinking that everybody's coming in here cold with no prior knowledge of a certain topic. But what happens is, so we compare ourselves to people that do have prior knowledge. You might be comparing yourself to somebody that has a private tutor. They might see a math tutor twice a week. They might have be doing a Saturday program with a curriculum, with the topics that the teacher is about to teach. They already learned this in that Saturday program that they do, or the after school program that they go to, or with their private tutor, or maybe a summer program they did last summer. They might know this already. So you sitting in class, minding your business, seventh grade, eighth grade, teacher introduces a new topic, writes the first problem on the board, tries to explains it, works it out step by step. You're the student sitting there like, I'm totally lost. I have no idea. This looks crazy to me. But then you look across the room, you see somebody writing away, raising their hand, about to contribute, give the answer, it's a correct answer. And you're looking at them and like, yo, what is going on? It must be something wrong with me. How he get it or she get it, and I don't have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you don't know what their background is. Like that child might be like, if somebody, like I think about how many students might have did that if they were in class with one of my children, not knowing that their father is a whole math professor, a whole math teacher. I started teaching my oldest son that's in college now. I started teaching him basic algebra at age 6. He was solving equations, solving one step and two step equations at age 6 when he was in the first grade. That wasn't on his school's curriculum, but I wanted him to understand that and have that head start. So I provided him with that. Same thing with my daughter, and my youngest son, Kwame, he's about to turn 5. I'm gonna do the same thing with him. So if you sit in the class with one of them, you can't compare yourself to them because they got a head start. So if you do that, you're gonna get discouraged, not understanding that no, this person has a head start. You can't. That's not a fair comparison. You can't compare yourself to them. It's like a person that just started working out, right? And they comparing themselves to a world class athlete that runs 10 miles every day and been doing that for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Like just because they don't get tired after like, what I'm saying, in the first 3 minutes, are you tired? You about to feel like you about to die on a treadmill at the 3 minutes. Like you can't look at them and be like, look, nah, see, this ain't for me. This ain't for me.
Right.
Like that's what children do because they don't know any better, and then they carry that with them, and then they feel like, see, it becomes a reason and a justification for them to like not want to pursue math because they thought the classroom was a level playing field, but it wasn't. So, but I do want to like have more adults like question that, like, why you think you're so bad at math? Because the person that thinks they're bad at math, they can do math. Like you'll watch them do math. You'll watch them, create equations in their head and solve them and actually solve problems.
Right.
But I think it goes back to that issue I mentioned earlier, which is people not having a proper definition of what math is. They think it's just the problem on the board that they didn't know how to do because maybe they didn't understand the formula or they didn't know that algorithm or the problem from the textbook or the problem on the SAT that they didn't understand, right? Like, it's so much more to math than just that,
Right.
you know. And sometimes we have bad teachers, a lot of teachers don't know how to teach. I mean, that's just the reality. Yeah, because a lot of teachers just aren't properly trained,
Yeah.
and so they can't really. I mean, I think for the most part, people do the best they can with the resources they have, but a lot of times their resources are very limited. So they're trying, but they're just not that good. So if they're not that good, then they can't really show you how to do what they can't do themselves, and it's such a shortage of, oftentimes it's a shortage of teachers, it's a shortage of math teachers.
Yeah.
So, you hire somebody, they got a college degree, and I'm a principal. I just need a warm body in that room every day. I don't want to keep, calling in subs every day. But that person don't really know math.
I want
So
you leading me to a question. First, I want to say this quote by Marcus Garvey, which is, "With confidence, you have won before you have started."
mhm.
And basically, all of what you said, just like how you kept going back to the whole confidence piece. Even when you gave an example of yourself saying, hey, look, if I didn't know something, even if I didn't know it, you have the confidence. And that is something that is key that I'm glad that you stressed, because a lot of our children, and even with adults, they don't have that confidence. And that's something that I see even being a reading tutor. I
Mhm.
see that. I see that's one of the main things that I talk about. I see a lot of the students that come to me, they lack that confidence. But I wanted to ask you, in going back to the concepts, because you said something that I thought was very, very important, in terms of the concepts, right? You said you lacked the understanding, the conceptual aspect.
Right.
Why? And so I want to ask you this, because I was reading, I think it may have been a lecture I was listening to, or I think I read, I can't remember, Dr. Amos Wilson, which I know you very
My
familiar.
man. That's
So I
that's
get
that's
that.
my
And so
guy.
the way you taught me, I'm like, please, I am not about to insult this man's intelligence. He know about Dr. Amos Wilson, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and he talked about, though, as a matter of fact, it was a lecture, because he was saying how he believes that in order for a child to get good at math, he said, really, first, what they should master is like the language. He was talking about language. And I guess what he was saying is that, that's a big part, that missing component as to why our kids suffer with math, which again, all of this is intertwined with literacy and math. Can you just, talk about that, and just in relating to how important like literacy and reading is, with you even being great at math?
Well, one of the things I tell students often is that you have to have strong reading comprehension ability in order to do math, because you have to be able to know what you're being asked to do, especially if we deal with like math word problems. And I know math word problems are the bane of a lot of students' existence. I didn't really like word problems growing up. I used to get intimidated by them, you know. And I think it's really unfortunate, but the fortunate thing, I guess, is like, because I was so intimidated by them when I was young, I'm so like aggressive when I see them now, right? I
Yep.
just want to like just attack them, and I just want to break them down, decode them, and just make them like seem like real simple, and then show other people, so that they don't have to be intimidated by them either, you know. Um, but yeah, but definitely like you have to know how to like understand like the English language, or not even the English language, could be any language, whatever language you speak, and know how to translate that language into the language of mathematics, because I think that's another thing. And then probably one of the reasons why I was successful at math in high school is probably because I excelled in Spanish. Like, I think I went up to like Spanish 3 in high school, and at some point I started to see like math, like sometimes I would be able to excel in certain word problems, but not all of them. Even though I had a little bit of trepidation, I still would like be able to like excel with in terms of some types of word problems. But I would just look at it like translating a sentence from Spanish to English, or from English to Spanish, except with a word problem, you're translating from English to math, right? So you got to know what each word means. You got to know what the phrases mean. Um, you have to, and you also got to know another reason that math is so challenging for many people is because there's so many synonyms in math, right? And you got to know, so like, for example, X is the same thing as 1X, which is the same thing as X over 1, which is the same thing as 1X over 1, which is the same thing as 1X to the first power over 1. And you got to know all of these different things, these different representations, right? And these different terms that all mean the same thing. And you got to know when it applies. And a lot of people, if you don't understand the language of math and the language of algebra, you won't know, because you'll be sitting in class like, I thought you said that was one. I thought you said that it was X, or but it's actually 1X. Well, 1X and X are synonymous. They're the same thing. And I think in recent years, I've started to become intentional with using words from English grammar and from like English language arts, like words like synonym, because I want people to think like, because a lot of children will understand what a synonym is in the ELA space, but then you come to math class and it's like they won't understand an equivalent expression, but an
Mm,
equivalent expression is just a synonym. That's all it is. Just like when on the elementary level, when you say like 8 plus 4 is equivalent to 6 plus 6, but it's totally different numbers, but they have the same value. And that's another issue. And I think that's a that's a reason that we, again, because people benefit from us being deficient at math. If we don't understand value, right, we can be taken advantage of so easily, right? Because a lot of us will look at like, okay, well, this is a different number. So because the numbers are different, they can't be the same. But it's the value though, right? Especially when you get into fractions. I think there's a conspiracy for children to not understand fractions.
Yes, it is.
Because if I could tell you that, okay, this is 3/4, right? And I'm gonna sell this to you for $5. But then I'm gonna tell you, well, this is 9/12, and I'm gonna sell this to you for $20. And if you don't know the difference, if you don't know that that's the same value, I'm gonna rob you every day,
Oh my
all day
God.
long. I'm gonna rob you all day long. 9/12, and because then I can even lie to you and say, look, well, this is 3 and 4, this is 9 and 12. 9 is bigger than 3, right? 12 is bigger than 4, right? I can lie
Yeah.
to your face. And I can say, if I say it in a certain way, you might even believe me. You might feel comfortable, and I can overcharge you because you don't know about value, and you don't know about the relationship between the numbers. Because with fractions, it's all about the relationship. We get into ratios, and then again, let me get political again.
Come
If
on.
we don't understand fractions, we can't understand ratios, and ratio basically is a fraction. And if we don't understand ratios, we can't understand proportions. And if we don't understand proportions, we can't understand or recognize disproportionate relationships. So when something is disproportionate, like, I'm being taken advantage of because like
Mhm.
maybe perhaps my community is not getting its fair share of, tax dollars, or my community is not getting its fair share. So like my schools or my school system is not getting enough resources that we're entitled to. There's a disproportionate relationship. These other districts, these other communities, they get more. So they get more money for, and like, people, ride through North Philly and talk about how dirty North Philly is. Well, North Philly doesn't have as many resources to keep the streets clean or to have trash cans available. They had the trash cans emptied on the corners and whatnot. So what you expect, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
But there are these disproportionate relationships. Whereas you go to some areas, things are much cleaner, and people try to attribute it to just, well, people just be throwing trash on the street. People throw trash on the street everywhere, but in some communities there are resources to pay people to come clean it up, and in some areas those resources are not invested in those certain areas. So again, for me, it all comes back to the math, like not even understanding, having a concept of like what a disproportionate relationship is, or even like with children, like, we're in class, you're a child and somebody makes fun of you, say something about your mom, and then
Mhm.
you get mad and you want to like, you want to throw a book at him, and it's like, bro, that's not a proportionate response. That's not a proportionate response, right? That's not it. That you're not doing an equal amount of harm, to them.
Mhm.
Like you could literally kill somebody from throwing a book at them if you hit them in the right place.
Right,
But
exactly.
and granted, it might hurt your feelings if somebody
Right.
says something negative about your mom, but you got to learn how to tell jokes. You got to get your jokes up, like so you can respond proportionately, But all of that is mathematical, These are all mathematical concepts, that manifest themselves in different ways. But to your original question, like language is so important. Like,
Yeah.
we have to understand the language of mathematics, like
Mhm.
to be able to like talk mathematically, and even like the vocabulary terms within math. One of the things that I was weak at early in my teaching career,
Mhm.
and I took for granted, was that students understood math vocabulary. Because like as teachers, we use these terms and throw them around loosely all the time, like factors and multiples and variables and exponents and expressions and the different properties like distributive property. Like we have to take the time to like explain those, because a lot of students aren't going to feel bold and confident and comfortable enough to raise their hand and say, I don't know what this is. Like, what does that mean? And they're so used to just listening and just this lecture style where they're just writing everything down, might
Yeah.
not understand anything they're writing down. But a lot of students have been trained that all I got to do is just look busy and just write everything down that's on the board, even if I don't understand it. you
Yeah.
know But I don't like when my classrooms are like that. I like to, it's a story. Every math problem is a story. And you got to understand the story from, the beginning to the end. And at the moment where you don't understand something, you got to speak up for yourself. You got to advocate for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You got to stand up, raise your hand and say, listen, where did that 8 come from? Because before there wasn't an 8 there. Where did that 8 come from?
Right.
And I'll be like, that's a great question. Where did the 8 come from? And I might explain it, or I might let somebody else explain it. But that's how you got to look at a math problem, step by step, line by line.
Mm-hmm.
We started with this, like what changed, and why did it change?
Right.
Where did those numbers go? What happened to the minus sign? Why was that X on the right side and now it's on the left side? Why did I do that, and how was I able to do that?
Mm.
And why did that benefit me? Why did I do it? Like everything you do in a math problem, you should do for a reason. It should help you to achieve an end goal, and that's a life lesson. So I often use math and algebra to teach life lessons. Like everything you do in a math problem should be in support of an end goal that you have for yourself. You're trying to solve for X. So just
Right.
like in life, like if I in life, okay, I want this end goal, right?
Right.
So if that's my end goal, I want to be a botanist one day. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that being a botanist requires a certain amount of schooling. I'm gonna have to study. I'm gonna have to spend time doing this, this, and this. Okay, so everything that I do should be an act that is in support of achieving that end goal. So that's how I can filter out, okay, what my activities should be. So maybe I can't just hang on the block all day long and I got to go home and do homework. So
Mm-hmm.
then it's like, okay, is what I'm doing in support of my end goal? Is hanging on the block with y'all, hanging out outside the Chinese store all day or all night? Is that going to help me become a botanist? If I say no, then I shouldn't be doing that. With a math problem, it's the same thing. If I'm trying to solve for X, that means I got to isolate X by itself on one side of the equal sign. So when student says, "Well, yo, we should get rid of the 15 on the other side," I'm like, "Hold up, how, that 15 don't have nothing to do with the X. It's on the right side. How does that support our goal?" So it's a way to keep us disciplined too. Like focus on the goal, and whatever you do should be in support of what the goal is. So I like to use algebra, yeah, as a tool for teaching like life skills, and get people to think, and also it helps to remember the steps too, because again, there's the concept part. So the concept is like how it's parallel to life, right? What is my end goal? Okay, this is my end goal. Then I can measure it again. All of my actions can be measured against. Is this going to help me to achieve this end goal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just you just do it like that,
Mm.
and then it makes the math make more sense. And then hopefully it'll remind you. And then from doing like a lot of math problems, and I think that's why like math can be used for character building, because if you do a lot of those problems and then it's kind of reinforcing that idea, okay, is this supporting my end goal? Is it supporting my end goal? So you're constantly thinking about that. So when you feel tempted to just like, I want to be a botanist, you
Mm.
know, so I can't hang out on the block with y'all all night. I mean, I can hang out a little bit, but I can't hang out all a whole lot because I got work to do. I got to go in the house. I got to go in the house. I can't be outside all this time. I got some work to do.
Mm.
Because hanging out with y'all all night is not in support of my end goal. So it's like a constant reminder every time you do that type of math problem. You
You-
know.
what I want to add to, because what you're saying, obviously you talked about the confidence. Now you're talking about the discipline. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about being focused. I got to say this piece before I ask you this next question. Yesterday, I had read a story aloud to a class, and it was a brother in there who was listening. I guess he was like, assistant, whatever the case may be. And so, after the read aloud, we having a discussion. As a matter of fact, the book I had read was called Muhammad Ali, A Champion is Born by Gene Beretta. Great, great children's book about him. And so after the read aloud, I'm talking to the kids. I'm asking them like, okay, what are some things you know how to do very well? I'm always trying to get them to think about what they know how to do well, what do they love doing, tapping into that passion, right? And so then we start something that came up in terms of as far as them, making a lot of money. And I was telling them, I said, yeah, you can do whatever it is, your passion, whatever it is you want to do, you can. transfer that into your livelihood, right? You can become, turn it into a career or whatever. And then somebody had mentioned football. That's what it was. It came back to me. So, of course, usually, majority of the Black boys typically say they want to either be a football player or a basketball player, which I know you already know.
Mm.
So, and I told them, I said, to be honest with you, I said, I'm not really a big fan of football. And I said, the reason why is because of a lot of the brain damage that a lot of players have talked about, right? So this brother, grown man, he says that he would sacrifice having CTE into getting generational wealth any day. This is what this man said, okay, in front of these kids. And so I was like, I'm like, huh? I said, I'm like, I mean, first of all, again, what kind of common sense does that make? You would literally sacrifice the fact of you being able to use your brain effectively for money. And literally, we were going back and forth about this. And I'm telling him, and I said, he was like, basically like, how you gonna say that these kids who coming from the projects that they shouldn't go the sports route because that's usually their ticket to making millions. This is what, again, mind you, this black, and he wasn't 20, Akil. Come to find out, because I had told another teacher about it. Come to find out, this man is in 40. Okay. So my question is, how do we get this mindset when you have adults who are saying things like this to our babies? And because it definitely made me be like, because I never had that kind of encounter,
Mm-hmm.
with an adult, especially too. Here it is. We know about the numbers when it comes to our children having high levels of illiteracy. I'm here in Cleveland, you know, some communities it's like 80-90% illiterate. Okay. Some kids are barely reading on a third or fourth grade level in their, eighth grade, high school. How do we get our community to get into the discipline, like you said, that they need the focus so they can be able to want to do math, want to read? Because we're battling not only the kid, this aspect of the high levels of illiteracy and them not wanting to be, into math. You got adults who are like I said, saying things like that. Please help us with that, giving some tips on that.
Yeah, so we will encounter a lot of adults that are just like how a lot of parents do. They project their own insecurities
Mm-hmm.
onto the children.
Mm-hmm.
And to the brother that was sadly misguided, this is also why we as a community need to understand statistics,
Come on.
the subject of statistics.
Let's grow.
People joke that statistics was the class in college that made them cry. But we have to understand statistics, because if we did, then the brother might have taken a different approach, or he might have understood more of the logic in what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is, when we look at the statistics and the statistical likelihood or the theoretical probability of one of those students, those boys actually going to the NBA or going to the NFL, it's very slim. You know, um, and again, like we always look at, we don't understand statistics, so we think, well, this person made it, okay, but this person out of how many?
Come on.
Again, fractions. We have to understand If you don't understand fractions, you can't even understand this conversation if you don't understand fractions. So if this one person, quote unquote, made it out of 5 million, or even if it's 500,000, you know, and then you think about, well, how hard would it be to become a mathematician? How hard would it be to become a physicist? Is actually, you have a greater statistical likelihood of becoming a mathematician or a physicist than actually becoming an NFL player, or an NBA player. And then you think about the lifespan of an NFL player. The average lifespan of an NFL player, I think, is like 5 years,
Mm.
maybe depending upon what
Just
position you
less than
play.
that. Right. Yeah.
It's so, even if you don't get CTE, it's so much wear and tear on your body. Like, it's inhumane. It's inhumane. Like football, like I played high school football. I enjoy watching football at times, but I see it as one of my contradictions, my personal contradictions, because I also understand that it's a very violent sport. Um, it's an inhumane sport. Um, but I do enjoy I enjoy watching it. I have a connection to it, to a certain degree, but I'm also realistic about what it is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think more of us should be, more realistic about what it is. But I think also the thing that bothers me more about the brother's comments is that this belief that it's like the rappers, right? The rappers that we grew up listening to, like when Biggie is one of my favorite rappers. But when Biggie has that line that people swear by, either you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot, right? And it's not so much that he was just reporting on what the reality was in his community in Brooklyn at that time. But the problem is that people take that and it becomes the reality. Even if it's not already the reality, it becomes the reality. And young people accept that. Say, okay, I'm either going to sell crack or I got to play ball. Right. And it's like, no, you can do more than that. You have more than two options. Right. It's not like, the American political system with this bipartisan political system. No, we have more than two options. Right.
Yeah.
We do have more than two options. Um, but I think it is important in order for young people to see that more adults, like myself, got to really be out here on the front lines and and having conversations like this and like telling them like, bro, like you could be a mathematician. Like you really can. And like, I'm a black man, I'm a mathematician,
Oh,
you know? And so because they're gonna only see the brother that was in the classroom arguing with you. They're gonna see him, and then he's gonna tell them like, yeah, you should go to the NFL. You should try to go to the NFL. There's so many more things you could do. And then even if you talk about the NFL, we have to have a serious conversation as a community um, about all of the jobs that are created and are maintained in corporations or institutions such as the NFL and NBA that don't involve any type of contact, that don't involve the actual sport. You could be a statistician, you could be, there's so many things you could do, that do involve mathematics, that involve science, that involve business acumen, all of these types of things. And these are also things that probably have a greater likelihood and there's a greater probability of one of those boys from that classroom achieving that. So it's unfortunate that you know grown men and grown women often are really just the proponents of such bad ideas, and they're really like they they're victims to a degree because they probably sat in a classroom with a grown man or a grown woman that said equally as harmful things, and they just internalized it and never questioned it, never attempted to question it. And I think that's a problem also. And I think this is something, again, taking it back to math, this is what math teaches us to do, to question things, right? Math teaches us to be disciplined and to follow rules because we have to follow rules within math in order to arrive at a correct answer. But it doesn't cause us to become slaves to a rule because we also simultaneously are always questioning whether this rule makes sense or whether this rule is the most appropriate rule to utilize at a certain point in time. So somebody like him, somebody probably told him the same thing and he never thought to question it. Well, like, how do I know that this is true? How do I know that this makes sense? And and why is it that like just because you're from the hood, all you can do is play sports? Why is that? Because if you watch TV and watch social media, you might think that, you know. But again, we got to start questioning these things. And that's from my own self-reflection. I think back to growing up and being in high school and middle school and high school and listening to, my favorite rappers, and me and my friends, we never questioned what they were saying.
right.
We
Right.
never tried to apply any type of discernment. We just said, okay, well, like we bought into the cult of personality. It's like, well, he's popular, he's on the radio, he's on TV. The the way he says what he says sounds good, but we never question the actual content of what he is saying to see if it actually even makes sense or even if it, and here's another large problem, to see if it's even applicable in the context of our own lives. Because what he's saying, or she's saying, because they were female rappers as well, it might make perfect sense in the context of their lives, but it might not be transferable.
Mm.
But these are all like this, all of this requires a certain level of critical thinking that you have to have, and media literacy that you have to have in order to even have that conversation. Because most people don't want, most people just like music oftentimes is just a form of escapism.
Yes.
So you don't want to be like too smart, you know, when you're listening to music. You just kind of want to relax, just
Right.
listen to it, you know. But it's that's why it's so dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
because it just goes into your psyche and into your mind. And if you don't question it, you know, then even if you think, well, even if you believe, I should say, because it's not always thinking involved, even if you believe that, okay, I'm not internalizing this, I'm not digesting these ideas, you actually are.
Mm.
You are. Then you have no filter up,
Right.
you know. So we gotta like, you know, people, we have to like train our young people to like, you know, discern and start to like question really everything you hear. And again, so mathematics enables you to do that, requires that you do that. Like with math, it requires you to. So when people say things like, when am I ever going to use this stuff? As if they're not going to use it. I'm like, well, so there's a lot of people that don't want you to use it because
Yeah.
they don't want you to have the ability to discern and to question anything that you hear. They just want you to listen to it. Favorite rapper. Okay, boom. We're going to put her out there. We're going to put him out there. They're going to be on the radio. They're going to be on YouTube. They're going to be streaming. Y'all going to be listening. Just take it all in. Take it all in. Because those people are puppets for an establishment that wants to sell products and sell a certain lifestyle. And I don't want you to ever question that lifestyle or question, well, should I even buy this product or should I even think this way? They don't want you to do that because now you're killing the vibe.
Mm.
You start thinking, you start killing the vibe. And that's what they don't want you to do. Right. Another thing, you know, to that point about, you know, why do I have to learn this? I'm never going to use this stuff. Back to statistics. When we have these like beliefs about the black community, as an example, um, because we may have had a negative experience with somebody in the black community, or we may have like witnessed something that was unfortunate, or, you know, but then we kind of extrapolate that and believe that, you know, the black community is just in totality, it's just bad. It's, you know, it's just, we don't want to be around black folks. We don't want to be in the black community. It defies logic. It defies empirical data.
Mm.
So as long as we don't understand statistics and even start thinking about things like what is empirical data, or like, you know, or like, you know, how often is this thing actually happening? You know, even if it is a negative experience that you did experience,
Mm-hmm.
why are you conveniently forgetting about all of the positive experiences that you've had in the same community and with the same people, right? So like 95% of the time you had positive experiences around black people. 5% of the time you had negative experiences. So why does that 5% of the time outweigh the 95%? In order to even conceptualize that, you have to understand some level of statistics. And because we don't understand statistics, and we can't really understand statistics because we can't do statistical problems if we don't understand algebra. And if we were weak at arithmetic, then we won't be able to, we can't do the algebra. It's all a domino effect. So when people say things like, well, why I gotta know, well, I'm never gonna use this. Well, if you don't use it, if you don't use this way of thinking, you're gonna be manipulated. And then somebody will like, you know, trick you out of your position, and then you end up doing something like selling your grandmother's house, you know, that she left you because it's in the black community because you think black people are no good. And then gentrification happens, and then you sell that house for like 50,000. That house is worth $400,000, and you just gave it up
Yeah.
because you didn't understand, because you bought into that narrative of the black pathology and the irredeemable nature of the so-called irredeemable nature of black folks because you didn't understand statistics.
Mm.
Because your one or a few negative experiences outshadowed and outweighed all the positive experiences you had.
Mm.
So you know you weren't able to look at things more realistically. So you know these are just it's the list goes on and on. There's so many ways in which um the math is so important just for our just worldview, and just how, and you know, when I think about the ways in which people, you know, kind of self disqualify themselves from just learning it, embracing it, thinking about it. and the harm that it plays. And like you won't even recognize you. Some people don't recognize the harm that it does, to not be able to think mathematically, because that's really the key. People get caught up in like, am I going to have to use this formula in my everyday life? Am I going to have to use that formula? Am I going to be in a grocery store and have to use the quadratic formula? Like, it's like, bro, it's not even about that. It's not about that. It's about being able to solve a problem and think systematically and think critically in a situation. When you go grocery shopping, that's a serious situation. Mm-hmm. Because most of us, we have limited money.
Yep.
We need to feed a certain amount of people.
Yes, sir.
For a certain amount of time. And even when you're in the grocery store, you might have a limited amount of time to be present in that grocery store. So you got to get everything you need and get out. You got to get home. You got a lot of things to think about. So that's an equation. That's a whole equation with a lot of variables. And if you mess that equation up, somebody not going to eat. Or you might need food for 2 weeks. But if you mess the equation up, you might only have food for one. Mm-hmm. So then the question is, what y'all going to do that second week?
Right.
That is a mathematical equation. So when people say, like, I'm not going to use the Pythagorean theorem in the grocery store, I'm not going to use the quadratic formula in the grocery store. Well, I'll tell you this, people that are able to use the Pythagorean theorem and the quadratic formula in a classroom setting, they're training their brain to be able to solve problems and solve equations. So, hopefully, so when they do go to the grocery store as a grown man or grown woman, they're going to have a better handle on how to grocery shop effectively. And a lot of people might, if they hear me say that, they might say, "Oh, that sounds crazy. You don't need to do it." Like, listen, you do. I mean, I think about a lot of businesses that fail after a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And then I think about, like business math, a lot of word problems that involve business, that involve, forecasting, making projections, making predictions. There are formulas that, are concrete, where you can plug numbers in and, figure out, okay, well, how much profit will I make if I do this?
Right.
What is my cost of goods going to be? Or what is my, what is my tax rate going to be? Or how much, if the price of this item goes up, how much should I buy? Or how much should I not buy? What should I put on my menu? All these types of things. Right. A lot of people, they're like, because a lot of people, they go into entrepreneurship. Maybe they say, well, I was always good at cooking. Let me start a restaurant. Yeah. I didn't like school. I hated math. So I'm going to go be an entrepreneur. Not realizing if you're an entrepreneur, that's when you got to know the math. You got to know the math as an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I'm of the belief that that's why that's one of the reasons why a lot of businesses fail. It's like grand opening, grand closing. Because you wasn't even thinking about, you kind of was just winging it. Like, we selling, we got the salmon and we got the sides, and, we're not even thinking about like, well, what's the cost of the salmon, this week or next week? Or it's like, oh, well, people not buying it if the price is too high, right? But, it costs this much if I get it from, the restaurant depot or the seafood market or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're not making enough profit. So you can't pay your bills. So you're going out of business. Mm. So it's like, you're going to be shut down because you didn't do the algebra that was required so that you could make the proper projections and plan. Like, you didn't do that because you ran away from the math.
And see,
you ran away from it.
What you're talking about too is, I remember another thing that Dr. Amos Wilson talked about, and this is what I read in his book, in terms of education. And he was talking about, why is it that you should be educated? What is the purpose of education? Mm-hmm. What's the purpose of reading? What's the purpose of doing math? And you said it beautifully. It's learning how to solve our problems.
Right.
And even just like with having real reading talk. And when I always talk about the real systemic issues, at the very core, the very foundation as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in the Black community. And you've said it all throughout this podcast. Number one, it's our belief system. Us believing that we are the ones, we can do anything that we put our minds to. We have to have the confidence. And when we don't have that confidence, we don't have that belief, then we're going to always think, just like, that brother said. And, and I ain't trying to beat up on him or whatever, but definitely that kind of mindset, it has to be stopped like immediately. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we can't sit up there and limit their options. You know, we can't tell them that, oh, you know, you came from the hood, you know, so therefore you must risk getting CTE, or, you know, your body getting broke up, you know what I'm saying? Or, you know, you just getting worn down or whatever. And, you know, maybe, you know, you may make it. That's another thing, you know, because that's the only way that you're going to see yourself being successful and making millions. You know, so again, you know, what you're talking about is that whole mindset, understanding we have options, having the discipline, having the focus. Those are things that we just have to keep saying to the community. And I love how you put in there too. We just have to literally, just as much as we hear the rhetoric about, you know, well, you gotta do, you know, get in sports or whatever, or be in entertainment, you know, in order to make millions, we have to be the ones on the front line saying, hey, look, no, you have the ability to be a statistician. You know, am I saying the word right? Yeah. Am I saying it right? Statistician?
Statistician, yes.
Statistician. Thank you. I want to make sure I get it right, you know, or, you know, whatever. Because I've even told our young brothers, I said, because I've said that too. I didn't say that, but I said, I talked about being an announcer. I was like, you could be a sports announcer, you know, just giving them options, right? I said, maybe you could be a coach. I even
Mm-hmm.
brought up Rich Paul because he from Cleveland. You know, I asked him, I said, y'all know, y'all heard of Rich Paul? You know what I'm saying? An agent. He's the one who's making sure that LeBron James gets paid top dollar. You know, so just opening their minds, expanding their horizons. You know, this is something that is crucially needed in
Mm-hmm.
our community.
And just, and also with that, in terms of like salaries, a lot of, young people especially, and some adults never grow out of this, unfortunately. um People not having a realistic understanding of numbers and number sense. And because a lot of times we become attracted to certain careers because we think, what the salary could be. On the one hand, oftentimes that's not a median salary. We look at the person that makes the largest amount of money and we say we act as if that's the average, or that's the norm, right? Like, oh, this person makes $300 million, has a $300 million contract. Well, that's not the norm though. Like, they're on the high end. Again, back to statistics, right? The bell curve, measures of central tendency, and all the stuff that people think doesn't matter. People think we shouldn't know that. We don't need to waste time, learning that, thinking about it. But so it's like we do that, but we also say, okay, we think we need that much money. And
Mhm.
I understand the mentality, because when you come from, when you're poor, you just, it ain't fun. So you think to yourself, okay, well, I know if I have this much money, I know I won't be poor.
Yep.
But we don't take the time often to analyze. And children don't do this because they're children. They're not supposed to do it. So they may not know, um, they may not be competent enough in mathematics to be able to do this. But somebody will say, oh, I want to be a billionaire. I remember having this conversation with my nephew, and he was like, I want to be a billionaire. And I was like, bro, why you need $1 billion for? You know how
Mm.
much money that is? Do you
Right.
realize how much money that is? Right?
Mm.
You don't need that much. You won't be able to spend that much money,
Right.
right? If you were a millionaire, if you have $1 million, that means if you make $1 million in a year, you're making approximately a little over $100,000 in a month. Most people in America, most people in the world don't make $100,000 in a year.
Yes.
So $1 million, but again, unless you have a strong mathematical foundation, you can't conceptualize the amount that amount of money. You can say it easily, like you can say $1 billion easily. It sounds great to say, a
Right.
million, $100 million. It sounds great to say, but how much is that? And I think when you break it down, as a function of time, like,
Mm.
okay, well, how much time does it take for me to make this?
Right.
Like I said, $1 million. It's like 100, a little over, a little less than $100,000 a month. On a
Mm.
30-day period is 100,000. So if we go with that, well, it would technically be 1.2 million, 1,200,000.
Okay.
Um, but if you do that, you break it down by week, you're talking about $25,000 in a week. I mean, there's people in America that make 25,000 in a year. And you're talking about in 1 week, in 7 days, you're gonna make as much as many people make in a year. Like, but do you need that? Like, do you need that much? Like, do you understand how much money that is? And
Right.
then we think about, okay, like, and I'm trying to recall the conversation I was having with my nephew. I was trying to get him to think about, well, what do you need money for? Because you
Yes.
have expenses. We
Mhm.
got bills.
Mhm.
You need to take care of your basic necessities, your food, clothing, and shelter. You want to want entertainment, you want to travel, you want to go places, you want to live comfortably, you know. So what type of expenses are you going to have that you actually need that much money anyway? And I think these are the conversations, these are the critical conversations that we got to have with young people, because oftentimes, you know, there are a lot of adults that don't really understand, because a lot of adults walking around here like, man, I just need $1 million. I just need to make $1 million. Like, for what? Tell me why you need to make $1 million.
Wow.
How much money is that? How much money do you make right now? And how much money would you have if you had $1 million? Like, let's really talk about it. Let's get down to the dollars and cents by day. How much money would you make in a day? Like, so if we break it down, like 25,000 in a week, we divide that by 7. Or let's keep it simple. Let's say we don't even count weekends. We don't even count Saturday and Sunday. Just Monday through Friday. 25,000 in a week. That's $5,000 a day. Like, you need 5,000 a day. Now, granted, I'm not including taxes, but let's just act. This is kind of like just a quick and dirty example.
Right.
But $5,000 in a day, like, do you need $5,000 every day, Monday through Friday? Because we talking about 100,000 for the month, $1 million in a year.
Sounds good, right?
I mean, it sounds good. Like, I mean, I'm not knocking it, but I just want I want young people to understand, like, and if it was only $1 million, this is how much it would be. Gotcha. Right. So when you start talking about, oh, I need, and they use the word need, I need $1 billion.
Got you.
Like, do you understand how much money that really is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Now, sure, you could want it, but do you need it though? What makes you think you need it? And then we get into like investing and, how you won't ever be able to touch the principle. And then again, so this speaks to, like, financial literacy. People always talk about that, but they don't talk about the math that undergirds and underlies the financial literacy. Right. So understanding the algebra, understanding the algebra 2, understanding the statistics, knowing how to do the calculations to really delve into the financial literacy. To be financially literate, you got to be mathematically literate. Or else you just, I don't know. I think there's a push for financial literacy, which I think is valuable. Okay. I think it's very valuable. I just worry that a lot of people we kind of get seduced by the stories that we see on social media. And then somebody's doing a class on this, or somebody's doing a class on that, and we want to participate. But I always wonder about, like, how do these classes really run? Because at some point you're gonna have to sit down with a pen and some paper and solve some equations. You have to figure some stuff out, whether it's using a rule of 72 or using compound interest formulas or something like that. And I'm wondering, are these people doing that? Because a lot of these people are the same people that are talking about they hate math, and they never needed math, and they never used math, and they hated algebra. So I'm like, I'm always wondering, like, how financial literate are you if you're mathematically illiterate? Because if that's the case, then you just really just sitting around listening to somebody else that made money tell you these stories about making money. And then I'm like, well, how is that really going to help you? If you can't sit down and do some calculations on your own, because that's what it gets down. I mean, if I'm teaching you to be financially literate, I got to teach you how to, calculate, credit card percentages, and like what your payment should be, and, average daily balances and all that kind of stuff. And I got to show you the equations, make the equations make sense, show you how to do the calculations on your own. You got to be able to do them, and not just use Chat GPT, or not just ask Siri, or or use those like calculators that are on Google. Like, you should know how to do it on your own. So I just, I really wonder about that, people like, running away from the algebra and running away from the math, but yeah, I want us to have number sense. Yeah. So especially as children, children got to have number sense. Because when children start saying, like, I mean, I think it's developmentally appropriate to say, like, I want to be a billionaire when I grow up. But I think as adults, we got to start challenging children to understand, like, well, why do you want to be a billionaire? And then, I mean, that's a segue to a conversation about monopoly capitalism. Because you're saying, like, because this is, if this person has $1 billion, in order for one person to have $1 billion, a lot of people got to have nothing. And a lot of people got to have a little bit, a very little bit. So that's that conversation. And then, this whole thing of, people are billionaires because they work hard. Nah, they billionaires because they were able to leverage. They were able to utilize leverage.
Yeah.
If they didn't just get an inheritance. Like you got a lot of white people that's billionaires because
Yeah.
somewhere, they're in their family line, somebody was a slaveholder.
Thank you. Let's say a lot of oppression was going on. Let's keep it
Yeah.
above.
And
Okay.
that's compound interest.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but again, compound interest, you can't really talk about like I could tell, and this again, back to the point about financial literacy and mathematical literacy being the foundation of financial literacy.
Yes.
I could tell you about compound interest all day long, but I want you to be able to do the calculation. You should be able to calculate the compound interest, how much interest it is, or like when will this much interest be earned, or if it compounds quarterly, or if it compounds weekly, or if it compounds, indefinitely. You got to use E 2.7 1828. Like we got to get into all that. We got to use the formulas, so that's why it's also ridiculous when you see people saying things or hear people saying things like in school should replace algebra 2 with personal finance. And I'm like, bro, like they're one and the same.
Mm.
Personal finance is algebra 2. Personal finance is algebra 1. Personal finance is statistics. Personal finance, it's again, when you realize it, when people are scared, they say and do very ridiculous things. And people are scared of mathematics.
Mm.
And I understand it. At times I've been scared of math at times, because math can be intimidating. But yeah, when people are scared, they say and do ridiculous things. So they say things like, you should replace this with this. I'm like, all right. So you just want me to sit around and just tell you stories about how this person made money and that person made money, but you don't want to do no calculations to figure some stuff out, you know?
Brother, I'm gonna tell man, I want to be so selfish so bad and just keep you on here for hours because you just dropping gem after gem. And then when you said the fact that you have folks who are talking about financial literacy, which is great, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
but then being mathematically illiterate. I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. Y'all, like I always remind my listeners, you better make sure you have your notebooks and your pens, pencils, whatever it is you choose to write with, because I intentionally make sure that I have people on here who are dropping gems. This brother right here, Akil Parker, okay, is like he's giving us homework, he's giving us empowerment. Wow. I mean, that's it. I mean, you literally have dropped the mic like big time. I mean, first, I want you to tell us number one, what book. I always ask my guests what book they're currently reading, and I want you to also tell everybody where they can find you because I'm sitting up here thinking, I'm like, okay, we need a Kill Parker like in all of the math classrooms, like seriously, but that can't happen. Well, I'll take
Well,
that
it,
back.
it can it,
It can
it
happen.
can if they use my YouTube
They
channel.
use your YouTube, right? Exactly. I'm
Yeah,
like, listen, I'm like, let me hold up. I'm like, what am I saying? Like,
that's
hello.
that's the way that I can like duplicate myself.
Yes,
It's
yes.
through my YouTube channel. So everybody that's watching this, please subscribe. All this math. Go on YouTube, type in all this math, subscribe, share, tell all your friends about it. And it's not just for children, it's for adults too, because I want adults to be able to help the children with their homework. And I
Mm.
want us to be able to once and for all, if you're an adult and you didn't have the best experiences in middle school, high school, elementary school with math, like I want to help you move past that now. So that this YouTube channel for you might be like therapy. Cause I'm gonna break it down and make it easy and make it make sense. And you're gonna be sitting there saying, man, I wish he was my teacher 20 years ago. I
Yes.
wish I had him for my teacher 40 years ago. And I mean, I've taught adult learners, and this is what they said to me. And this is what some people have told me when they've watched the channel and they type it in the comments, or if they know me in real life, they send me a text or whatever. You know,
How I feel about our
um,
conversation. I'm sitting up here. I'm like, I mean, one of the main reasons why I did not get into math is because my mother, she would tell she was like, I ain't like math. I wasn't into math. So I heard that. It wasn't like math was all embraced, So it was like math wasn't something. I'm like, man, that's what them nerdy folks. That's what them smart kids.
yeah,
And then
it be
unfortunately, the Black community, we've seen more Asians
mm,
and Indians doing, what I'm saying, our folks from India doing math more so. And we definitely not seeing our people. So, we really got that stim, we like, oh, them Chinese. You know what I'm
That's for
saying?
them. Yeah. And
Yeah.
actually it's for us. It's ours. Like we, you know,
Yes.
we made this. We made this. You know what I'm saying? We like when we go into a math class and they make us feel like we visitors in our own house.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. And
They
that's
got
why I
us,
said like this,
they
man,
tricked us out of our position,
for
you know?
real. You've been driving me all the things. I was like, okay, like I'm just letting brother Akil go. He going because he's saying, I mean, all the different things. It's like, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is how we think. Yeah, oh my goodness. Like we literally just are intimidated, we just feel like math is not needed. And you are breaking that down for us, like, and you've done it like in such a real way. And I know you've
Hmm.
heard this before, like you just so relatable with it. You a cool brother. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so like, yeah, man, like, yeah, that's the problem. I mean, this was dope. I really, really, truly appreciate you. What book too are you currently reading as well?
So I'm reading a couple and I need to jump back into this, but this is a book called Schools of Our Own
Okay.
by Worth Camille Hayes. It's about the Chicago it's about private education in Black Chicago,
Oh,
and this was recommended. And yeah, I'm just a fan of any books written about Black people starting our own schools, educating our own. I'm just a fan. Like so, if I find out about any book or Black folks, taking responsibility for educating our own children, their own biological children or just children in the community, I'm all for it because I just want to learn more about it and see how it can be done effectively. I mean, I know, and shout out to all the people that have independent schools, independent Black schools, like here in the United States right now, and the people that are starting them. I mean, even if they're small, even if it's just like 5 to 10 children, in somebody's basement, somewhere, and y'all are consistent. Shout out to y'all because it's gonna grow. It's inevitable.
yeah.
It's gonna grow as long as you stay at it. Um, so I'm just a fan of you just learning about that. It's inspirational for me,
Mm,
learning about, our people. Because that's really what all this math is. All this math is like and the YouTube channel is like an online school, to an extent. It's not as fully developed as it will be, but you can go get the lessons. Anybody, you can go online and get the lessons, different types of algebra, geometry, arithmetic, word problems. Speaking of financial literacy, I have a personal finance playlist on the YouTube channel. So different problems involving like calculating the tip or things of that nature. You know,
ooh,
um, and my daughter Asada, my 12-year-old daughter, she's featured in a lot of the videos because I'm also modeling for parents. Like I'm a math teacher and everything. And I'm a math professor, but I'm a Black man and a father first.
yes,
Before
sir.
that, so it's my responsibility to teach her certain things and teach all my children certain things. So I'm trying to model that behavior for our community. So other brothers, will see that, and feel confident, like, okay, yeah, I can teach my daughter this, teach my son this, and even the sisters, like, they can teach their daughters and sons things, because it's just something that we have to do, and it really can't be like an extracurricular thing. It can't really be an option. It's mandatory. You know,
Mm,
it's there's got to be a sense of urgency. You know,
mm,
so yeah, so this is what I'm reading now,
okay.
and or one of the books I'm reading now. There's a
Okay.
couple other books I'm kind of juggling. Like I'm still trying to finish. I'm still finishing my reread of the Black Bourgeoisie by E. Franklin Frazier.
Okay, I read that. I gotta reread that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a minute, so I started rereading it, but I got like 40 pages left
Okay.
from my reread that I started a couple months ago. And there's another book called Humble Pie. I'm into that. It's just about math, pi like pi, like
That's so,
3.14.
I love. Look at you. Yeah,
Yeah,
great math. Like,
yeah. And also the one world schoolhouse by Sal Khan. I'm trying to, study Khan because I'm trying to kind of leverage and build on what Khan Academy has been
yeah.
doing, you know, and but doing some things differently. Like, I want to, like he's intentional about not showing his face, and just writing on the screen. But I'm like, nah, because part of my mission is to show Black children
Yep.
and Black adults that Black people do math.
Come on.
So in order to show us that Black people do math, they got to see me,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So they got to see black people doing math. So they gotta see it. They gotta go be able to go on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and like see like black men doing math.
Mm-hmm.
They gotta be able to see it. So, but I'm trying to I'm trying to study some of his ideas and his history and how he started Khan Academy and what his journey was, so to speak, and how he was able to do that. So those are a couple of the books that I'm reading right now, and yeah, so I just want everybody to make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and tell everybody about the YouTube channel, everybody and use it. Use it. The different problems are organized into different playlists.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you know the name of the topic that your child brings home for homework,
Okay.
or you can just go through the playlist section and just scan through it and just
Mm-hmm.
find what you need. We currently have almost 700 videos, ranging from arithmetic up to calculus one and
Mm-hmm.
everything in between. Yeah, and we're gonna be increasing the numbers. We're gonna be increasing the numbers. You know, and in terms of, but also in terms of books,
Yes.
definitely check out my book, How to Use All This Math,
That was my next.
Volume One.
Really,
Uh,
how long did it take you to write that book, by the way?
Technically, like I don't know, like 2 years maybe,
Okay.
because I didn't go straight through. I was procrastinating and playing around.
Okay.
Um, and then I had to like buckle down and get serious. But this came out in June,
Mm,
June of 2023.
nice.
So it came out June 2023, and
Mm-hmm.
it's available on Amazon for
Mm-hmm.
$34.95 on Amazon.
Okay.
Um, get it while you can at that price, because once it becomes more popular, the price got to go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man.
That's that's
Oh,
that's supply and demand. Supply and
I
demand.
man, you already look at you. See, that's that. Matt, I love
So
how you
yeah,
always making it clear to us. Like, quit being afraid of math. Math is
yeah.
everywhere. Embrace it. Be confident. And the things that we don't know, and that's the thing, people have to understand. If you don't know something, guess what? Ask somebody who does. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
find out. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, whether it's a person or somebody leads you to a video, leads you to a book, you're empowering us. And that's what I appreciate about this conversation. Like all through the conversation, you're reminding us about who we are as Black folks and how we can be empowered.
Hmm.
Always having that mindset of, I can't do it, this too hard, this too much, you know what I'm saying? That whole mentality.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
okay, you know what I'm saying? You got, like, as that people have said, pick your heart, what you want. You know what I'm saying? You want it to be a hard, battle for you trying to be successful, or you want to be hard stuck in being unsuccessful and not having enough. Pick your
Right.
heart.
Exactly. Exactly. And in the book, what I'm doing, I forgot to mention like what the book actually includes. So
Yeah.
the reason I wrote the book was because since I'm so immersed in math, I just like I'm sitting in this room right now I'm at my girlfriend's house right now, and that's why
Mhm.
if anybody was wondering why I would have a picture of like a woman behind me, but
Oh, I didn't.
that's not
I, didn't-
it's not
I didn't.
it's not really.
Honestly, I couldn't even tell. It's hard to tell
Yeah.
what it is, but okay.
But yeah, but I mean, I like this piece, but
Okay.
it's just not my home. But
Got
yeah, I'm just trying to meet people where they are and trying to show people that math is not as well, actually, no, I lost my train of thought. What I was saying was when I'm just looking around in the room, I just see example math problems
you. Mm.
like all around me. I just see them. And I realized that. So I said, I should write a book that kind of captures a lot of those examples, and I
Mhm.
put them in one place. Because if I'm just sitting in the house, just chilling,
Yeah.
like, watching TV or just like in my living room or just driving somewhere in my car and I just see something and I'm like, that could be a math problem. That could be an example math problem. Then that's a way for Black people to, be able to show things to their children. And that's a way for their children to repeat over and over and over again and get practicing. Because then if they're getting a lot of practice in the home, because people always say, oh, it's got to start in the home, this and that, but they don't ever provide no resources. They don't ever show people how to make things start in the home.
Oh,
They just
how?
like talk. And that's why I realized like a lot of people, they just hate Black people. A lot of black people hate black people, and they just like saying that because they just want to be critical. They just want to be destructively critical. They're not even trying to be constructively critical. They try and be
Mm.
destructively critical. And they just want to say, oh, it's supposed to start in the home, this and that. I'm like, okay, yeah, cool. But how? Like, show me how. So I'm saying, so if I say math instruction should start in the home with the parents, with the grandparents, with the aunts and uncles. I'm like, I wrote this book so that I could show you, even if you don't have a math degree, or even if you don't have like an education degree, or even if you don't feel as comfortable with math, I'm talking about things that you're gonna see, in your house, or things you're gonna see when you're driving, in a car, and you see other cars, or you walking down the block, and maybe you look at the license plates on cars. This is one of the chapters talks about license plates and how you can take the numbers off the license plates and just your children can just practice adding those numbers, subtracting those numbers, multiplying those numbers, dividing those numbers. It's just basic practice because so many children don't know their addition facts from 1 to 20. Like, a lot of children, it's children in third, fourth grade that if you run up on them and say, like, bro, what's 8 plus 5? Like,
Right.
they can't tell you, or they gotta sit and think about it, count with their fingers when they need to just know that. They just know 8 plus 5, 13.
Yeah.
They need to just know that,
Yes.
9 plus 7, 16. They need to just know that. So, and I believe it's because they're not getting enough practice, or they may only do it in school, but they
Yep.
can't just do it in school. They got to be doing it constantly. They got to be doing it constantly. So I'm showing you how to create teachable moments, um, with the different chapters in this book. And there's another chapter. My favorite chapter is probably negative ages. My
Okay.
negative ages chapter, like, and and also it's another thing about this book. Like, a lot of this stuff that's in this book are actual skills and strategies that I've used with my own children, and I love my children,
Mm.
so I'm not going to give them no BS. So I'm passing on to you
Come
the
on.
same thing you get that I give my children, right? So it's certified, it's official,
Come
right?
on.
So with negative ages, that was something I did. I got the idea to do that. I was having a conversation with my daughter Asada when she was much younger, and I was telling her a story about something that happened, an experience I had when I was young, and I asked her, I said, well, how old were you when that happened? And she looked at me like I was crazy because she was like, Dad, I wasn't even born yet. So how could I have an age? What do you mean? And I'm like, well, so that was my way to teach her about negative numbers and the number line.
Oh.
So she was born in 2012. So for anybody watching this, on your own personal number line, the year you were born would be zero, would be your 0 year, the year you were born. So she's born in 2012. So that's her 0 year.
Mm.
So if I'm having a conversation with her, I think like, and I'm talking about something that happened to me when I was 8, I went somewhere when I was 8. And she also knows that I was born in 1980, so then she could figure out, okay, well, what year was it when that thing happened, if it happened when he was 8? So she's doing the math, thinking critically. She's
Mhm.
doing 1980 plus 8, which is 1988.
Mhm.
So then what we're doing is we're trying to figure out, well, Asada, how old were you in 1988? But if she wasn't born until 2012, she was zero in 2012.
Okay.
So then she would have to subtract and go back. So basically find the difference between 2012 and 1988. So then when she does that, that's 12 and 12, because from 1988 to 2000 is 12 years. And then
Mhm.
from 2000 to 2012 is another 12 years. So 12 and 12 is 24. So she was negative 24 years old.
Wow.
So just imagine, like, anytime, because, and this is the thing, like, we're always having conversations with our children anyway. We always talking about stuff that happened before they was born. So that's a way to introduce that algebra concept of negative numbers. So they don't got to wait till ninth grade when they in the algebra 1 class, and then they be all confused, all dazed and confused. Like, what you mean? What do you mean you can, like, subtract a bigger number from a smaller number? Because a
Mm.
lot of a lot of children experience that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what they experience. So we can do that in the household. Um, and with something that we're already doing anyway. Like,
Mhm.
we're already having conversations and telling stories, or telling stories about, their grandparents, or
Right.
when I was your age, and we used to do this, and
Right.
then you can
Right.
ask them, well, how old were you? But it's even dope too, because you could take it to a biology lesson, because, like, for the sisters, since women are born with all their ovaries, then if you're having a conversation with your daughter, your son, you say, listen, you really was with me when I was doing that. because you was in my reproductive system already since I was born with all my ovaries, all my eggs. So when I thought about that, I was like, wow, that's even doper. That's even doper. So we combine the math with the biology or with the anatomy and physiology, you know?
The language, because then they're learning about ovaries and the language, you know what I'm saying, of,
Yeah.
the body parts and all. I mean,
Yeah. So that's in there.
you like y'all better get this doggone book. I'm already getting a couple of copies to give to our community, okay? And when we get more funding, then I'll be able to get more books, because these are the types of books that we need in our community. This right here. It's you just like dropping like y'all you over delivering, and we need it and we love it. I was definitely, I was expecting a great conversation, but literally, I'm just like, okay, I'm taking notes. I'm just
I
like,
see,
okay,
I see, I see you writing. I see you
oh,
jotting.
oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, oh yes, that's what I'm doing. You better believe it. I ain't playing. I'm like, no, man, I'm getting this knowledge, giving it to my kids and the people that we are around in the community. Oh my goodness, Akil, like I said, we could definitely go on our count. Ooh, I love it. Every second was worth it. Every
Mm.
second was worth it on here, having this conversation with you. I appreciate you. Because I'm gonna tell you, I saw Dr. Greg Carr, he shouted you out.
Oh, yeah, okay. On in class with Car.
Uh-huh. Yes, he
Okay,
did. Because
okay,
I'm a part of Nubia. Okay.
okay.
All right. So, he was talking about you and Karen Hunter. Okay. Like, oh, yeah, that brother, all this math. And then I saw a clip of the video that you did with the sister. I don't know. You just did that podcast with her. I seen her podcast. I think our brother Sharif El Mekki.
Oh, building the Black Educator podcast with
Yep.
Shayna Terrell.
Yes. I
Okay.
saw it. I was like, I'm about to reach out. Like, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah. I'm
no.
glad
I'm
you
like,
did.
he's blowing up. I'm about to get him that.
Yeah, I'm glad you did. Like I just like talking about math. I like having positive conversations around math because it's lacking. It's lacking. There's a lot of negativity about math, but I want us to have more positive conversations. Can I ask a question? So I'm assuming if you got any viewers that are in the Baltimore area,
Mhm.
I want to shout out my I'm doing an in-person summer program in West Baltimore this summer.
Okay.
It's a Histematics summer program. We didn't get to really talk about Histematics. Maybe I can come back. We'll have another
Oh no, you coming back.
another episode.
Allow you, please. Look, I don't care how big you get. I'm like, you remember me? Okay. No.
Uh, but yeah. So with the Histematics summer program, it's 5 weeks, and it's going to be in West Baltimore. It's for middle school students and also high school. Um, it's only 2 hours though. It's only 2 hours a day, Monday through Thursday.
Mhm.
Um, let me see. So we're going to be examining different books such as Asada, different books each week. So Asada 1 week, my autobiography of Malcolm X another week, the miseducation of the Negro another week, Black Power another week. Um, books of that nature. But I'm using those books as math textbooks. So I'm going scouring through those books and I'm creating math word problems based on the content in those books. So it'll be like, the purpose will be twofold. So the purpose is for them to understand the text and
Okay.
the literature, but also to be able to practice their math skills, at the same time.
Mm.
Because it's like reinforced, And it's the same thing they do, like, on the SAT, like, except on the SAT, they just, and I guess I'm not mad at it because I expect them to do that. Like, when I do SAT prep, I often come across like math word problems that'll highlight, U.S. presidents or people like, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and, different slaveholders, but it's meant to promote, them as cultural icons and
Oh,
heroes. So I mean, it's a good strategy because you won't think to question it.
uh,
So I think we have to do the same thing, and I think we gotta start creating more math word problems that really highlight and promote our own exemplars and our own historical like figures.
yep.
So that way they can learn the math and then learn the history at the same time.
You heard of Black
Mhm.
Math Genius? That
Yeah,
was
the sister, what's her name?
Sada.
Her name's Asada. Yeah,
Yeah, out of
yeah,
Chicago. Yeah, I purchased that program for my kids.
yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because that's how they said she talk about the doggone. Uh,
Doggone people like West Africa, I think.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. You know, I mean, going into that history and stuff. And again, like you said, just like how you said with your program, it's benefiting children, but it's not only for children; it's for adults. That's the same with them. Because I'm sitting up here, I'm like, as they're listening and learning, so am I, sitting right there, like, dang, like
Hmm.
So once again, I mean, yeah, you're gonna have to come back, and I'm glad that you want to come back because we need you. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I'll come back. But yeah, definitely. So if you're in Baltimore and you're
Yes,
interested in the program, there's a link. There's a tiny URL link. Can I give you the link and then
that's
you
what I was
post
gonna
it?
say. Yeah, because I want you to give me the link to your purchase of your book. All right, the link to the program, to your YouTube channel. Because what I do is I copy and paste all of that. I put it in the description, and then when I put it on YouTube, and yeah, so people can just like quickly go. And this podcast is going to go on all the podcast outlets as well, Google, Apple, and all that, Spotify. So, yep, definitely. I appreciate. Oh yeah, definitely. I appreciate it.
I'm gonna put
That's
it in
dope.
the I could put it in the chat, right? The Zoom chat right now.
Yes, you can put it in the Zoom shopper. And actually, if you don't mind, can you put it in the IG in which since we've been communicating through that way?
Okay. Yeah, I definitely
That'd
do that.
be yep, and I can just copy and paste it that way.
Yeah, I put the website for the link for the summer program application, the Histematics summer program application,
Okay.
also the link to my book and the link to the YouTube channel. And in case anybody's wondering, all my socials are all this math. All this
Yes,
math on
exactly.
Instagram, all this math on TikTok, all
Okay.
this math on Facebook.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. That's perfect. That's perfect. Well, I'm not gonna keep you any longer, brother. I appreciate you dedicating this time and giving us all of your knowledge. You are just so dope. Please keep doing what you're doing. Seriously. I mean, which I know you are. I ain't, but I'm just saying it again. You know what I'm saying? We definitely need you and appreciate you big time.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you appreciating the work, and I'm honored to be able to, provide this type of service to the community. Yeah, I really am, and I'm trying to carry on tradition. Like a lot of people have done in the past, and I've been taught. I've had good teachers,
Hmm.
and and I just want to be able to pass it on to some other people that hopefully in turn will then pass it on themselves too. So like I often say, like I'm just playing my part,
Oh,
you
you
know.
you doing that. And I thank you for being a part of us helping to break those generational curses that have been holding our community back. So again, thank you definitely once again. So all of you, I am just, y'all know when I get so excited, I get tongue tied. Sometimes I'm like, this brother, Akil Parker, has done a phenomenal job with, talking about all this math. All right. And so y'all already know what it is. You're going to follow him. I'm going to make sure that I put all of his information to the links to his purchase of his book. Those are in the Baltimore area. You can sign up for the summer class that he's going to be having and just follow him and make sure you like, subscribe, share, and comment. All right, make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel as well, All This Math. So, again, this has been another episode of Real Reading Talk, and I am your most gracious host, Miss Sasha. And please remember to keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And don't forget, reading is freedom. You all take care. Peace.
Peace.
Oh, y'all already know what it is, okay? If you did not walk away feeling empowered and inspired and ready to make sure that your children is loving math, then that means that you probably need to listen to this podcast again because brother Akil Parker was bringing it, okay? And as you all saw, I was allowing that brother to go ahead and just do what he do because it was definitely empowering for me on a personal level and my approach and how my views were about math. And I just really pray that it was the same way for you all as well. So with that being said, now I'm about to go into the housekeeping really quickly. I'm a pre-K through fourth grade reading tutor. ABC Learn Tutoring is the name of my company. Go to abclearntutoring.com. Click on their free reading assessment today. You guys make sure that you do that, because it's like I'm getting students back to back, all right? And they're coming in here and results are being achieved, okay? So you make sure you sign your child up today. Also, I'm the founder and executive director of ABC Read. Our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities. Here in Cleveland, we've given away well over 6,000 books, y'all. All right. Our goal is to give away 10,000 books by the end of this year, inshallah, God willing, and we will achieve that goal, all right, with your help. So please go to abcread.org. You can see the work that we've been doing, and we would love and need your donations. And also make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, which this podcast will be uploaded to, which is Reading is Freedom, has a plethora of read alouds for everybody, all right? So make sure that you subscribe, make sure you share, make sure you like, make sure you comment, and hit the notification bell, all right? Also, you check out the new merch, okay? Got that on the website, readingisfreedom.store. It is on sale, so you go grab yours, because we need to read, all right? Every single day we should be reading, okay? For at least 30 minutes, all right? And also, of course, like I said, with the podcast, Real Reading Talk, make sure you subscribe to it. It's on Spotify, as well as the Google Podcast, Apple, all the podcast places, okay? It's not on iHeartRadio yet, though. All right. And so now I want to share with you all the books that I've been reading. The one book I just started that was given to me by one of our donors, Dr. Swad. This is called Notes from a Coach, 31 Days of Meditation for Teenage Girls, written by Carla Harris. All right. And this is her beautiful face. All right. So I recommend this book. This is something I said, let me read this. I wanted to read through it, see the different advice she was giving for our young ladies, our young girls. And so it's really some great points in here. And so I highly recommend that you all grab this book. All right. And this book here, just received a copy yesterday from my colleague. We call him Musa, Morris H. Irvin Jr., A Teacher's Quest, Turning Fear into Strength and Pain into Passion, y'all. So this is great memoir reflections of his teaching journey, his life journey. And I definitely highly recommend that you all get this book. He's from my hometown, Cleveland, y'all. So please make sure you support this brother. And this is the book that I've been reading through constantly. Spare the Kids Why Whooping Children Won't Save Black America. Put the belts down, y'all. Put the sticks down. Quit saying you're going to beat the kids. Please stop with all of that. All right? Quit talking about you're going to knock them in the next week. We need to stop that. That's trash talk. We got to quit doing that to our children, okay? All right? And then I'm going to leave you all with this quote. All right? So the quote that I have for you all this week is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. All right, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Let's make sure that we have our children ready, all right, so that they can be teachable, okay? We want to make sure that our children are getting prepared for success, because we definitely been living in a world, as we know as Black folks, that has been a true uphill battle and a struggle. But if we are empowering them and we're doing this together, they are unstoppable. Believe that. All right, so this has been another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Seisha. Please make sure that you keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.